Hi, everybody. My name is Hemant, and I'm an alcoholic, and I haven't had the first drink with the grace of God. Always say the grace of God because that's important. I have no power over my alcoholism, and so I couldn't prevent myself from what I was because I was bodily and mentally different from others. So my alcoholism is disease is not disease. Disease is not of my choice. I got the disease because I was bodily and mentally different from everybody else as any other chronic alcoholic is. But the power, so lack of power was my dilemma, and the power to stop drinking came from the Almighty. That's why I have to say the grace of God. I'm eternally grateful to the God of my understanding. And yes, guys, today we are doing the fourth step, and the question most often asked of me is, Hemant, how do you make this list? Who are the people who are supposed to be in the list? How do we get to these guys? I really don't know whose name to put down, and how to decide what name to put down, and how does one do that? For that, in fact, one of my sponsors once asked me. I said, the guys on you're in contact with right now, and he says, I've got 1,500 names in my contact list on the phone. Now, am I supposed to write down something about each of them? And I had a good laugh. I said, no. When I say contact, I'm talking about your immediate family, the 20 people who are really affected. And I'm going to read out something from page 82 of the big book before we start. And the alcoholic is like tornado, roaring his way through the life of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. So these are the 20 people, 20, 25 people who are your immediate family, your wife, your kids, your in-laws, your parents, your siblings, your wife's siblings. The immediate family is really affected when you're with your alcoholism. When you drink, your wife's life is destroyed. And if her life is destroyed, her family suffers too. Her maternal family suffers too, as your paternal one does. I still remember that when I was making my list, I thought that I would have no resentment against my father, because his last words when he was dying were, "Okay, Hemant, okay, Hemant, okay, Hemant." And yet, when I thought back, the fact is that he had some problem with his knees, and every night he needed a knee massage, and I had been taught that by a doctor to give him that knee massage. Now I would carry a glass with me because I would drink from outside, and I would carry a glass of alcohol with me to do the massage at night just before he slept, and he would turn his face away. And I would think to myself, what is this? Yeah, I'm doing him a service, and he's turning his face away. Of course, what could he do? He hated the smell of alcohol and my breath. He couldn't tolerate it. I was drunk, he knew it. So I resented that fact that he turned his face away. I mean, I thought that there was nothing, and I had nothing to say. So these people, this immediate family is the most important. Then I and then I take and then I look around myself and I see who else is on that list. Who else I can put down? Who else do I remember? Because the names come from my memory. The list is how do I make the list? The names are in my memory. The list is of people who come from here, from my thinking. And why are they there? Because I remember them. I can later on. So I have to be most inclusive, not exclusive. I have to make a list which says anybody I know right now, maybe the watchman downstairs. Well, why would I resent him? Because once when I came home drunk, he told me that I was drunk, and I didn't like that. I tried to hit him. So he's on my resentment list. I'm an alcoholic and I can resist anybody. I can resent anybody. I can resent the guy who's made more money than I have. One of my colleagues who's made more money than I have. One of my friends who's scolded me for over drinking. My resentment list can be just anybody who looked at me askance when I was drunk. My biggest enemies are my family, because they are the ones who are most worried about me, and they are the first ones who tell me, why are you drinking like this? Why are you screwing up like this? So that is how the list does. Then I go back a couple of years. Who else was there? And I'm talking about right when I've come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Who else was there? And I find that most of these people were there. These people still comprise of the list. Is there anybody else 2 years back that I remember? Well, if that is, why do I remember them? 5 years down the line, 7 years ago, 12 years ago. If there is a name which still is there and it rankles, I have to write that name down. That's the guy I resent. That's the guy I'm angry with. That's the guy who I'm scared of. That's the authoritative figure which I cannot accept. That's the institution which I thought income tax department, police station, because I went to a police station and the policeman was hard on me. I have to write all that down. Those are the things I have to write on the first names on the list. In the list, the first the names. These are the things. These are the names I have to get to. The list is equally important because as I go further down my memory, like I really don't remember, yeah, when I was 12 years old, because I have nothing left from that. Even I don't remember it at that time also. I had no memory of what, even when I was 18. When I was 45, all those names had long gone past. Yeah, some things I'd done in school, some friends who had quarreled with, hit me. Okay, all that thing was gone and done and dusted. But the immediate people. So the list comprises of anybody who is in my memory right now, and then are a couple of tests here. Do I think of them with pleasure or displeasure? Am I still angry with some of those people? Does something they said still rankle? And that's how the list is made. The list is paramount importance, because unless and until I have a list, no, unless I cannot write down why my relationship with that person was the way it is, why I was angry, how did my relationship with that particular person affect me, in what way, what did it lead to, what were the consequences, all the other things on the list, but the names are important. And the names are there, they're your memory, my memory, not my mentors, not my sponsors, not Philip's. The names from my memory. They are the ones who I remember. And if they rankle, if there's something wrong, I have to do it. I have to work with it. Those are the names I have to put down, and then I have to work out what my relationship with them with. Sometimes I find that certain names give me a lot of pleasure. Well, that's great, isn't it? So everything I write, all those names don't have to really disturb me. Because some names are just there because they loved me and I loved them, and that was it, and that's over and done with. But the names which rankle and the names which I give me trouble, well, that's what the list comprises of. And welcome to the Mangalore AA group, and we are having the Back to Basics 12-step study conducted by Philip, led by Philip, and moderated by me. But basically, I did want to make it very clear here right now before I invite Philip to take over for his usual brilliant discourse on the fourth step, and we'll start the fifth step, I believe, today. But the list is of paramount importance. So let's be very clear that the list comprises of those people in our memory right now, going back as far back as you can, but it has to start from now. And the most important people on the list are the people who you rode through like a tornado through their lives here. Thank you so much for listening to me. Philip, over to you. God bless. And thank you, Philip, for doing this great. We are all loving it. Philip, you're muted.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. You're in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're doing the Back to Basics workshop. Any newcomers to this group today who's on their first, second, or third AA meeting? If so, would you please put your hand up so that we could welcome you? If you have a drinking problem, you're in the right place. Please identify yourself so that we could meet her. Meeta is the first meeting today. Welcome, Meeta. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Tejas. The names of people who are in their first year of recovery or lesser, who have just joined AA and are in recovery. Could you put your hands up so that we could felicitate you? Yeah, there you go. That's Meeta, Suresh, Joe Kenneth, Randall, Tyson, David. Who else is there? Deborah, Tejas, Bella Patel, Rajiv M, Hema, Vijay DC, Mark Ranchari, Shabir Sri Lanka. Welcome all you guys. Welcome to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a life-giving program, a life-saving program. For you who have been through the throes of alcoholism, humiliated and defeated, you are in the right place. Because everyone here is in pursuit of sobriety. Everyone here is in pursuit of happiness. And what we're working on is trying to find that happiness by looking at ourselves and finding who we are and what went wrong with us. So here we are and doing our fourth and the fifth step today. I said I'll complete fourth step today, otherwise it keeps dragging. Now, if any of you have any suggestions, or if you have any, what you call ideas, or if you want to do it again, or if there is some help that you require doing your fourth step, we would be happy to help you out. You can put your name in the chat box, or you could call the numbers on listed in the box, and we could sit down with you and help you with it. Now, for the benefit of the newcomers, those who are here, I go over step 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll take a short step preview or glossary into what made me come to Alcoholics Anonymous and why I have to work the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is suggested. It is like suggesting, jumping out of an aircraft with a parachute, and it is suggested that you pull the ripcord. But, you can't tell an alcoholic to do something, because an alcoholic is the last person who would obey. He or she does not like being told. It's an ego problem, which I think we're born with. Who is an alcoholic? Any individual who cannot guarantee his or her behavior after they picked up that first drink is essentially an alcoholic. Now, how did I become an alcoholic? I don't know. There's no answer to people ask, how do you get cancer? How did you become a cancer patient? Or how did you become diabetic? Certain questions have no answer. Probably it's a genetic disorder or something that goes. But I knew I was a disaster waiting to happen, because real early in life, I was embroiled in what you call fear. I got a sort of a kick, with fear. It's a sort of an adrenaline rush, that comes through me. And I used to be fearful every day. I used to wet my pants in the night. Bedwetting was a common feature with me growing up. And fear embroiled. I didn't like coming back home or, going to school. Where most people went to school, kids went to school to study. I had absolutely no interest, even as a kid, to go to school. I like the gimmicks outside. The school that I went to at that point of time had pottery, horse racing, gymnastics, shooting. I liked all these extracurricular activities, but I didn't like, dealing with books and studies. That was. So when I look back at my very early stages of life, I was a rebel, and I was rebelling without a cause. And I wanted things my way. I remember going to I was sent to a boarding school, and I didn't like the boarding school. So what did I do? I faked that I lost my voice. And I held on to that for 6 months, my voice, that I would just sort of croak. And my parents brought me back to Mumbai. They didn't know what to do with me. So I got my way there also. So these are the sort of characteristics that I had even while growing up, and like they say, I was a disaster waiting to happen. And at age 12 or 13, I got into contact with alcohol, and, it was a love-hate relationship right from the beginning, Alcohol gave me wings, but took the sky away from me, and I couldn't see it. I was left fluttering, without the sky, and I didn't know what to do about it, I lost my self-respect, self-worth, self-esteem, whatever, I had with me. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. They say in the book that we have a maladjusted personality. We are maladjusted to life. I'm bodily and mentally different from other people. I'm a mental destitute, and the sickness of mind centers in my mind. It's in my mind. It's not in the body. Alcoholism is a threefold illness: a mental obsession, a physical allergy, and a spiritual bankruptcy. What we address here in Alcoholics Anonymous is the spiritual bankruptcy part of it, because alcoholics had no discipline. With me, absolutely no discipline, and spirituality is all about discipline. So when I was left with nothing, left for me in this world other than to drink and die, I chose, to drink and die. But death wouldn't come easy for an alcoholic. Every night I cursed myself, and I was too much of a coward to kill myself. So finally, they say in AA, religion, medicine, and psychiatry failed an alcoholic. I tried all these avenues, nothing worked. And the last referral they had was Alcoholics Anonymous, which I came to. There again, I tried playing Tron for about 6 months before I could give up. I finally ceded, that I can't do this anymore. I was walking out from my deathbed. Everyone had abandoned me, my siblings, my parents, my friends, everyone abandoned me. And I was lying in the last stages. I had gangrene set in my testes because I had a urinary infection, and I neglected it, ignored it. I drank over it. And my father wouldn't say, go to the hospital. He said, no, if he dies in this house. I can't spend any more money on it. And that was the last straw. And I had my grandma at that point of time living with me, and my grandfather was an alcoholic. He died an alcoholic. So she took charge of me and said, if he dies besides me. And I think that was the saving grace that I'm talking to you today. So, left with no other recourse, I had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, they told me, lack of power was my dilemma. So I lacked power, and that is why I drank alcohol. Alcohol gave me the power. It gave me the gumption to go forward and do what, I wanted to do. But, when you look at an alcoholic's life, my life, it's a life of broken dreams, It's a life of, wishes that never came true. It's a life of, worthiness that became unworthy. And when I look back at my life, these things were so pertinent to me. I lost my childhood, Most kids grow up chasing girls or, having fun, going to movies, doing things they like doing. I was trying to drink people under the table. That's not normal. And I thought that was the normal way of living or thinking. So what made me an alcoholic was, the irritability, the restlessness, and the discontentment. I was not happy with myself, with my life, and the way things were around me. My sense of perception of life was totally different from any other human being. I always flew a different aircraft. It flew backwards, and I justified it. That's the way I looked at life. And so I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had to accept the fact that I was powerless over alcohol. And that's the reason I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I was not willing to accept that my life was unmanageable. The first Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of 12 steps. And why do you have 12 steps? Because I do not have a format for living. And I need a format for living. I need a discipline in life, which I don't have. And this program gives me that format for living and a discipline in life. Alcoholics Anonymous also stands for altered attitudes. And I alter my attitudes. Why? Because, I need to live. The gift of desperation. I was desperate to find a solution to my drinking problem. And that's why I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. The last straw. The last straw that broke the camel's back, they say, that was the last straw. There are no more reference after this. So I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I sobered up. And they said, after I stopped drinking was never your problem, Philip. Staying stopped was your problem. So after I stopped drinking, they said, now let's address your issues. That is the unmanageability. And there I saw that it was the unmanageability of my life that made me drink again. I lacked coping skills. I lacked perspective. I didn't know how to relate to people, including myself. I didn't have a relationship with myself. The only relationship I had was my head would demand a drink and I would go and drink. If my spirit said, Philip, don't do that, I would say, you shut up, you know nothing. So there was no connection between the head and the heart, the conscience or whatever you want to call it. So I had to establish a relationship there. For that, I had to understand what this relationship was all about. So I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Now, they said lack of power was my dilemma. So I found that power in Alcoholics Anonymous. A group of drunks, GOD, they call it, a group of drunks, a gift of desperation, gift offered daily. This all word GODs, because I didn't like this word God, because the God in my life did nothing for me other than put me through pain, trauma, and suffering, humiliation, degradation. People talk of hell, who knows better than an alcoholic what hell is, We've lived there, we lived there, living hell. I say that, I was living a nightmare with my eyes wide open, and I couldn't do a damn about it. I was condemned to drink against my own will. So great was the obsession, so great was the love for alcohol that without it, I thought I would die. So now here, what happens is, the second step when I get a power that is restoring me to sanity over a drink. It's as well, it's not just the drink that is your problem. You had a problem before that. Drink just magnified it, multiplied it, and made it even more unmanageable. So first you have to get rid of your drinking, and then we will address your spiritual side of the program. And that is, the spiritual life was not a theory which I had to live, and I didn't know what spirituality was. To me, I look at it this way: spirit and ritual. Spiritual, the word spiritual, split the word spirit and ritual, discipline for the spirit. I had a hole in the soul, my soul was empty. It was lacking, it was wanting. It needed attention. And so this program gives the soul the attention, the soul food, the feed for the soul, It's like interacting with others, reaching out to somebody else. They say, if all else fails, work with another alcoholic. So it gives me proposals. It gives me a way of thinking, a way of living, which is acceptable to my dumb head, I call it dumb head because, it is always a bad neighborhood to be in. It's a stinker. If I go there into my head, I can find nothing positive about myself. I see only negative things. And that negativity leads me to a drink. So when you go up there, they say, take someone with you, maybe a sponsor, a friend or something. Whatever is happening in your head, speak about it. So in the third step, they say, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, having found a source, having found a power greater than myself, having found a power that would substitute alcohol, that is a power greater than myself, which I choose to call God now, I start moving. I had to hand over my will and my life. What is my will? What is my life? My will is what I assume I want, What Hemant just read about the alcoholic and the tornado, His life is like a tornado. He's so oblivious to the things that he or she does. They say, oh, what's the big deal in it? It's the only way they think, the only way they live. And that's very natural for them, disaster management. So here I am, I hand over all my will, whatever I think, whatever I want, whatever I expect from others, that's my will. I hand it to God. And my life, that is the wreckage of my past, the life that I'm living now, which is not of any use to me or to anybody. In my life, my spirit was flagging. It was a dying with the life that, and yet, obnoxious and stubborn that I am, I'll say, no, you can do it. I'll do it. I'll manage it somehow. So I had to stop fighting. And I could only stop fighting if I had this help from this power greater than myself. And so finally resigned to the fact that, I alone can do it, but I cannot do it alone. I was resigned to the fact that, okay, I'll accept this higher power. So it's only a decision that I'm making. We talk of the 3 frogs on a log of wood in a pond. There are 3 frogs sitting on a log of wood in a pond, a serene pond. You can even see the fishes jump on it, a beautiful pond with greenery all around it. And there is this wonderful log there with 3 frogs on it. And one frog decides to jump into the pond, So I was asked how many frogs are there. And I mean, at the Dumbo that I said 2, So my sponsor asked me once again, you think about it. The frog only was deciding to jump. It has not jumped. So it's only a decision. You can take back your decision if you want, but you must make that decision because you can't carry that load on your own. That load is bearing you down. That load is dragging you back to a drink. So you have to hand it over to someone or something. Earlier you had alcohol to hand it over to. It numbed your feeling. It numbed the reality that was life. And today you have to face life. And life was given to you on a platter, but to live that life, there are certain, precepts that you have to follow. And that one is, handing over this weight that I'm carrying to a God of my understanding so that my load is lightened. And I know it's like a child coming home to its parents and telling its parents, that boy is beating me. So it knows it can take shelter in the parent. The parent is, sort of encompasses the child with love, compassion, and understanding. If it is a bruise, the parent goes and finds out why it happened, how it happened, why should it have happened. So, that's the way the God of our understanding is. I relate it to a child because we are all children of the same God. We look at God in different ways, in different forms, and through different religions. But in the end of it all, God is omnipotent. That's what I understand. That's what I know. He's only one. He's single. He, she, it. I do not know what it is. If I could understand God, then that is not God. God is something way beyond my comprehension. Something that it's insurmountable. I just can't imagine. So that's what my God is, a God of love, a God of understanding. And I had to understand this, the transition that happened to me from when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, I drunk and I stopped drinking. So it was a divine intervention that brought me into Alcoholics Anonymous. It was something divine, something beyond me. I had tried everything in my book to do it, but it didn't happen. So I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous and I stayed sober. Why? Because there was a profound personality change that came about me. My thinking process, my thought process changed, and I started staying sober. I started taking, soaking in what you call knowledge from the recovered alcoholics in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous. At first, I couldn't believe them. So it was something beyond me. So I didn't hesitate to call it God. And then they told me the other love God that you think of is a loving God. It's not a punishing God. If it was a punishing God, you wouldn't be alive today. You wouldn't be of any help to anyone, including yourself. When God created you, He created a masterpiece, a wonderful human being. But if you see blemishes in yourself, it's not God's fault. And I was also told by my sponsor, you had to go the distance. You had to go through whatever you went through, bad, good, to the traumas, the hell that you thought it was, to make you the person you are today. Because, I had to, go through hell and brimfire. That is me. Otherwise, I don't understand. Pain is the touchstone to emotional sobriety. I had to go through pain. And that is the only thing that changes an alcoholic like me. I had to go through that pain. And that was God's way of bringing me back to being a human being. Was I inhuman? Yes, I was inhuman. I was worse than the animals. I lived on instincts, basic instincts, instinct of survival, self-centered fears rule my life. And that is where, after I handed it over, I was asked to do step 4, where I had to find out what went wrong with me. If I was a sick puppy, I had every right to know what went wrong with me. So twisted relationships, that's one of the main things. Fears, harms done to other people. Now, this is all gobbled up in my head. And when I don't know what to do about it, it's like borrowed money from somebody. Or, I by mistake in a blackout, I hit someone with a car and I don't know whether that person is dead or alive. I was in love with a person and I ditched that person. Or I'm married and I had an affair with somebody else and I can't, live with it or live without it, So you see, I have these demons in my head that keeps eating me up, that keeps churning me up. And unless I find out what these demons are all about and start dealing with them, I may go back to a drink. So I started, like Hemant said, started making a list of the people I knew. I spoke about it yesterday in detail, telling you how I did it. Once those names came on the page, the first one, I would say my father's name was there. I would say, why did why didn't my father like me? This was a misunderstanding. I expected my father to be something and he didn't have the capability to do that. And in the end, the fourth column says, what part did I play? It's my misunderstanding, my comparison of my father with somebody else. My father is unique. He's a person of his own abilities, capabilities, and he's got a name of his own. I can't expect him to be like somebody else. Today, I understand that. Today that I'm a father and I have children of my own, I understand that. But then I was so immature, even to understand those things. So I had to make peace with my father. Now I'll tell you one story of what that peace is. Long years of, this turmoil, and father and son going bantering. Every time I meet him, I would throw my worries on him whenever I could. I would cut him down to pieces, in the sense, in talking, that you have done nothing for me. This is it. That is it. You are you're a very qualified guy. You fought during the independence. What do you have for yourself? These sort of ranting that, I would get that. And I would know that, that's his credibility. I shouldn't be living on his credibility. I should be having something on my own. And I'm 25, 26 years old, come home drunk every day, create a chaos in the house. There is so much of unrest in the house, dysfunctional the house has become. And this poor man would, go to sleep in the drawing room, small flats that we live in. I'm still in that same house where I grew up. And I had to come back, 10 years back. I had a plan to go to Australia and I had all my papers ready. And then I came home to meet my father and I stayed with him. And it was on an Easter day when he wanted me to go to church. And, I was just about doing my fourth and fifth step, the second time or the third time over. And I told him I don't want to go to church. And he was very offended about it, old people and their sentiments and understanding of religion. So I told him, I have a program that I'm working, and I have something to talk to you about. He was really aghast and he was really upset over my refusal to go to church, because that Holy Week is quite important for as a Christian, and he comes from old school. So I said, Dad, give me 10, 15 minutes and I'll come back to you. I took my pad, I took a piece of a pen, and I wrote down 10, 12, different things that I wanted to discuss with him or make amends with him. Then I came down, sat down with him, and I read out 1 to 12, all those things that I had listed. Why, I always fought with him. Why I thought my marriage was not working, why I didn't complete my education, so all these things I did about 10, 12 of them. This man just without even batting an eyelid, you could see the expression of, sort of wonder on his face, saying, and finally after he finished, he says, I didn't know you went through all this. I said, Dad, we never had a relationship with each other. Even if I wanted to tell you something, you were not willing to listen. So I'm a chip of the old block and I would hold it against you. And that made peace with my father. And he's dead and gone, but I made peace with my father. Others, I would live that life, throughout my life, thinking, how I'm working this program, and this program is a program of absolute honesty. Honesty, open-mindedness. So when I'm doing step 4, it's all about me. It's not about somebody else. But why do I have these names? These names, I have them because these are the people who are occupying my head. They're staying here rent-free. Every time I'm doing nothing, they pop up. One will come and say, you did this, you said this, you robbed this of that, you took my money. So they keep popping up, and that committee starts eating me up. And when I can't handle them, what do? I go and pick up a drink. So drink was the peacemaker there. So now if I am God dependent, then I have to get this peacemaker out of my life. To get this peacemaker out of my life, I have to understand what is happening in my head. So that is where we have the resentment list, we have the fear list, we have the harms list, and the sex list, which I talked to you. Now, if you have compiled this list, then you need to look into it and then, talk about it. Because living in my own head, I'm a legend there. I have justifications, rationalizations on about everything. So the 5th step is, admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of my wrongs. Now, why do I have to admit the exact nature of my wrongs? Why do I have to admit to another human being? I mean, that's ridiculous. How could that be, All my life, all those things that I have done, All that I've been through, I got to talk about it to somebody else. All that I've written down on paper, nonsense. You know? But my sponsor asked me one question. How do you plan to live with yourself if you don't get rid of what is bothering you? That is a very pertinent question. If I don't get rid of what was bothering me, it is going to bother me right through my life. They say in AA that you are as sick as your secrets. Now, what are these harrowing secrets that we have? You can only have those, you can only have done those things that any human being could have done. You have not gone around killing people. You have not gone around raping people. You may have, but you're given a chance to reconcile with it and lead a life without guilt and shame. Guilt and shame is something that I lived with. It didn't let me sleep. It didn't let me go. It just pulled. I kept pulling my hair. I would sigh and turn on one side. I would sigh and learn on the other side. I'm disturbing the person sleeping with me. What is wrong with you? Nothing. What? Yeah, I had somebody, I did something too. That person surfaced. And now I have to deal with it. And that dealing with is my conscience. My gut feel, these things, which I had neglected. That is my spiritual, a sense of obligation of what God has given me. I didn't feed it. I didn't look after it. I didn't nurture it. Now when the trouble comes, it does not know how to reciprocate. So the reciprocation is, Alcoholics Anonymous says, make amends. Now the amend more than anything else is for me. If I have to remove these things from my head, Tom, Dick, and Harry, I have to find out what wrong I did to Tom. Why did I do it? What was the result of that? And what part did I play in it? Right? So, Dick, what happened? Again, I borrowed money from him. Right? And then every time I went to his house, I act flirtily with his wife. So this is a part that I played in it, And why am I angry with him? Because he's bugging me. He's asking me for money all the time. So when I look at it, what part did I play in it? My motives were I borrowed money from him and I was flirting with his wife. So who is to blame for it? Now, can I go and tell Dick, hey, my friend, I've been flirting with your wife, even though I'm pregnant. I can't do that. I can't buy my sanity or serenity at somebody else's cost. I should remember that. If I have done harm to somebody, it's my responsibility to acknowledge it and do what I can to the best of my ability. But it should not harm or hurt the other person, knowingly or unknowingly. I cannot buy my peace of mind at somebody else's cost. And that is what Fifth Step is all about. I go looking into my goring past and I thought, ooh, huge secret. I was a murderer and I should be in jail and I should not be living with it. And that is what I did in my alcoholism. I was living in a jail. I was living in a self-imposed prison. I was a prisoner of my addiction. I was a prisoner of my past. I was a prisoner of my future. I was not living in the now. I didn't know whether I was existing or not existing. Every day I was an A-R-E, I was there. That's about it, I was living from one drink to another. So I have to be free from the bondage of alcohol. When I accepted the fact that, I'm powerless over alcohol and my life is unmanageable, and I accepted in totality, I get freedom from the bondage of alcohol. Now, when I get freedom from the bondage of alcohol, I get the freedom of choice back. As long as I'm drinking, my gift of choice is not exercised. My free will cannot be exercised. Remember, we are all born with free wills. We gave our will to somebody else and they were using it, like Tom, Dick, and Harry in my head. I gave them my free will and now they are using it in my house, in my head. So that free will comes back to me, it gives me an opportunity to get back this free will. So the gift of choice, I choose to stay sober. For those newcomers who are here, the gift of sobriety, it's not exclusive to one person, but it is exclusive to people who are in this fellowship, and they are loved by a power greater than you. Though you may not acknowledge it now, it's not by your choice or it's not by your recommendations that you're here. Neither was it of mine. But I came to alcohol. There are millions of people out there who are dying of alcoholism or alcohol-related deaths. It could be an accident. It could be a liver failure, alcohol poisoning. It could be so many things. But why you and I chosen to come here? So there must be something, specific about us that God wants to do with us, to use us. So are we willing is the question we need to ask. I've got the gift of life back. Now, what do I give back to AA? So you give back to AA the honesty to be the person your God of your understanding wants you to be. Self-will is what you hear. Self-will run right, instincts on right, what you hear. Now, to get rid of it and to start a useful, productive life, you need to know who you are. You need to know to what extent you think you have damaged yourself and the people around you. Self-knowledge is good, but self-knowledge is not good in all areas of life. Self-knowledge didn't save me from my alcoholism. So I had to share my knowledge with somebody else so that I don't bullshit myself. I am the world's best bullshitter, So that is why I admit to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. My last fourth and fifth step that I did, it's about 6 years back. And even now I'm doing one with you guys. And that's how I'm able to tell you these short snippets. When I did it, I had a sponsor. I was in Bahrain at that time. I had an Englishman who was a sponsor. And when he saw my fifth step, he said, Philip, I can't do it with you, because he had 1 year more of sobriety than me. And he said, I can't do it with you. You'll have to find someone or go back to your old sponsor. I had that fourth step in my car dicky for over 6 months, because I can't leave it loose at home, because my wife, my children, someone may read it. So I had it in my car. And when I came to Bombay after 6 months, I went straight to my sponsor and I said, I want to do a fifth step. We sat down. There were about 12 pages or 14 pages. He took one page, read it, threw it away. Took another page, threw it away. The third page, he kept it down. The fourth page, he threw it away. He kept 3 pages down in front of him. The rest of the pages, and I was fuming. 6 months, I took it around in my car to get it to him, and he's throwing away. It does not matter. This does not matter. This does not matter. When he took those 3 papers, he opened up and said, Philip, this is what matters for you. And that was the relationship I had with my sponsor. He understood me. He knew me inside out. He knew my trigger zones. He knew what was wrong with me. He knew where I had fallen off. And he put it right. He stood up for me and he did it right. And that is what sponsorship, and that's what the fifth step does to me. I was free from the bondage of fear. I feared those things, these demons that live in my head, and I had to remove those fears. And unless I understand those fears, I'm not able to do it. And that is what the fourth step is all about. Resentment. You resent yourself. Why? Because you are not capable of being the person you expect yourself to be. I always fell in my eyes. Leave alone people, leave alone people. I fell in my own eyes all the time. Every time I promised, I did the same shit again, only to come back with guilt, shame, and remorse. I couldn't stand up for myself. I had to come out of this if I have to be rid of my alcoholism. You can stop drinking and you have untreated alcoholism. It's just that you stop drinking, but your mind remains the same. If there is no change in your mind, then there is no happiness in it. It's still irritable, restless, discontented. Perfectionist. You want everything straight. You want what you want and you want it now. You're always angry. You're always in a hurry. So that has to stop. And that is why, the fifth step is so very important. And the big books, it says, would a person drink if he does not do his fifth step? So though it is not, hard and fast rule, a person may go back to drinking. If I don't, come to terms with my fears, that is coming to terms with my past, then my future is bleak. So that is why the fifth step is very, very important, So I will sign off today with having told you what the step 5 is all about and why it is of paramount importance to do it. We call it catharsis. In Latin, it's called catharsis. That's confession. The Catholics have that. They go to the confession room every week or every month and they confess their sins, or they think that what is troubling them to the priest or whoever is there, and the priest gives them absolution. So they come to terms with it, they deal with it, but not so in an alcoholic's life, because he's full of secrets. He's full of secrets. So I have to, come out of these secrets, this secretive life, this dual life that, the actor, the stage actor, and the real person that I have to, come to terms with that. And that's what step 5 is all about. So, admitting to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. It's not a shame, you are a person of credibility if you can stand up for yourself. You will be a person of honor. You lift yourself, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-respect will come up when you own up, for those things that you think you have done wrong. Nobody is going to question you. And nobody can give you absolution other than the power greater than yourself, the God that created you. You're just sitting in front of another person because you don't, being the bullshitter that I am, I can even bullshit to God. So it's just for that, me, myself, and the God of my understanding. So here I leave you with step 5, if needed be. If you guys are willing to do a step 5, please put up your hands so that, we could assist you with it. And if you need any more clarification on step 5, please put that in the question box also. I thank you very much for turning up, and for those newcomers who are here, please hang around and, ask questions. Don't think it is trivial. Remember, you are a midget in your own head. You're immature, and don't think you're grown up and you know everything. Actually, I know nothing. All that I knew and understood is what got me into Alcoholics Anonymous. So welcome. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you for turning up, because without you guys, I couldn't conduct this workshop. Thank you, Hemant. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank all the co-hosts for, putting around the circulars and, notices so that, we could help one another. Now, as much as it helps you, if it is helping you, it's helping me as well. Thank you very much. Good luck. God bless. Over to you, Hemant.
Brilliant. I mean, I'm simply loving what you're telling us about you're doing right now. Your study is helping me tremendously, Philip, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. God bless you, Philip. Lovely, brilliant. And when Philip said that line, "Forgive ourselves," I was reminded of something I read some time ago, and that is when we do the 4th and the 5th step, we admit that we are spiritually ill too, and we admit that to ourselves, and then we stop self-abuse and we start self-examination.